Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Forward Podcast. I'm your host. Oh, man.
I'm your ghost, and you were just making fun of me for messing up words.
I think my face
Boom.
is actually red. I'm blushing.
The Lord could come back right now. I feel so justified. I feel so great right now. I'm your ghost. And I'm your post, Thomas Shepard. Y'all, if you could just hear the conversation we just had. Don't say no.
Start it over. Start over.
Please tell me I'm recording this. Yes, 43 seconds in. This is the Forward Podcast, and I'm your host, Terry Hefford.
Okay. Did you say Terry Heifer?
I did not say heifer. We can rewind it back later.
I think you did.
Oh, my word. Well, it is so funny because right before we hit record, we were talking about how many a times I have mixed up my words. And she, when we were younger, thought it was so funny.
When we were younger, we were talking about it because I think it's hilarious now.
I know. You know, let me just say this. Being a pastor is not easy.
No.
Remember 2 or 3 weeks ago? You know what? I changed my mind.
Play the pastoral card. No, what were you going to say 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Okay, you preach a 40-minute message, and you study, you prepare, you preach your heart out, you give it your all, and you mess up one word, and everyone coming through the line. What was it a couple weeks ago? I didn't say introverted. I said
you said introverted and
not extroverted.
no, extroverted is the right word. Outroverted. Well, I knew I messed it up, and I was like, oh, forget it. Just it was at the end of the message. God was working in such a great way. Wouldn't you know? Outroverted.
I'm just going to call him out. My youth pastor, Pastor Chris, thinks it's so funny.
You did not.
2 of our good friends, he's our administrator at the school, Stephen and Charity, sitting there chuckling their little heads off.
You dropping names.
This is the first time on the podcast I've dropped names, but I'm dropping them. Because you know what? Shame on them.
I know.
And they never apologized. Then they have to walk through the line.
I had people.
Outroverted.
Why was I not in that service? But I wasn't. What was I doing? Anyway, I had people coming up to me and saying, outroverted, ha ha ha. And I was like, what? I was so confused. And then you said on the way home.
I goofed it up. I messed it up.
Well, see,
I'm just kidding. I'm not mad at them. Not really. I'm their boss, so if I was too mad, I'd just...
give them the old pink slip.
And Mr. Carlson listens to this faithfully. So he's probably working out at 4:30 in the morning right now, either laughing or getting very nervous.
Anyone that works out that early in the morning cannot laugh at anything that we do, because that's
there's
just
a lot of
crazy.
people who do. We have another friend, Matthew Bethel, and he is...
Look at you dropping all the names. Everyone's nervous now.
Yeah, there's... In fact, we got some questions here we're going to go through.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Get them all down.
Everybody's like, oh, no.
Oh, man.
I'm totally joking.
No, but it has been a joke in our marriage that this is why we were talking about it, because he will say, like, phrases. I don't know. What are those called? Like, colloquial phrases.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just like we're off shooting the breeze, like a phrase like that.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And he'll mess it up. And so when we were first married, I remember we were in the car and we were driving, and your mom called, and she said, "Well, what you doing?" And you said, "We're just out shooting the gun."
Guns.
And she's like, "Shooting a gun? What gun?" And I lost it. Do you remember how hard I laughed? I was like, "You mean shooting the breeze? We're not shooting a gun."
Oh, my word.
Oh, so just stuff like that. He always like
And
just
you
barely.
loved it.
I love it. I still love it. It's hilarious. And then I just did it. Oh, man.
I don't know.
Bad
This
night.
is going to be the greatest night ever recording.
Whatever.
What are we supposed to even talk about tonight?
No, I obviously can't talk. In my head, I was thinking host, and then I was remembering when Tamra, your sister, said, "Why do you say who's the host and who's the co-host?" And we were saying both of us are. And so I was thinking of her saying that, and then I was just like, co-host. I don't know.
You got it all in one. You were trying to hurry through this episode.
Maybe I just made a new title. I'm the coast.
I like it. Coast Kari. Oh, yeah. You used to have this tagline, West Coast Kari. Remember that?
Well, that was my Instagram for a while.
It was. West
when I was
Coast
trying
Kari.
to like
There's
minister
a
to
lot
the
of
girls.
people, yep. Who would call
Yeah.
you, is West Coast Kari here? So now you're just Coast Kari.
Yeah, I actually had girls give me stuff with like WCK printed on it,
did
like
you?
a monogram. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. That was cute.
I never had anything like that because I never messed up my words.
This whole thing was about how you mess up words, and I finally did it,
It was
too.
just funny how we were. Anyways, we're boring everybody to death. Hey, let's get into tonight's episode. We've been talking about the last couple weeks, marriages, and it has really sparked some great conversations. Some really cool questions have come in, and I'll just say this. We may not do, for our listeners, we may not do another question and answer right away. But if you have noticed, we are answering a lot of questions just by talking about these subjects. And so continue to listen. And for those of you who have requested some answers, some things that we've been writing back and forth, we don't always just jump in and share those right away. And so we're doing the best we can, trying to give some great advice and just seeking the Lord on some matters, and then even helping you with some prayer requests. And so remember, if you have those, write in. And then some things we've been talking about in marriages has sparked quite a few questions. And so we want to continue to dive into that subject tonight. And so, Kara, why don't you give us what we're talking about and the subject, kind of the tagline this evening?
Yeah, well, this series has been keeping love alive in your marriage, which we're very passionate about helping people with. And so our title this week is Myths in Marriage. Myths in marriage.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about some things that maybe you get married and it's just kind of part of our culture, and you might assume is part of marriage, and then you turn out to be horribly wrong, or maybe just in the way which you grew up, you kind of saw this modeled. And so we all kind of fall into these myths that we think might be a part of marriage, but they're actually not.
Right.
Or they're bad for your marriage.
Yes.
So we want to talk about those tonight.
We are, and we want to say, I'd like to say this right away. I had a question this past week, and just asking about, do you feel like you have, they said, Brother Shepherd, do you feel like you have a good marriage? And I would like to say publicly, I really do. I don't want to be on this podcast. I hope you see now, we are real, we are authentic, which means this. There's other shows out there, and it's fine that they do this, and they edit, they delete stuff out, they start over. We do none of that. None of this is edited.
I really wish we did.
Yeah, there are some times, and we
like
may
tonight.
get to that point where we do, but we don't. We just, here it is, this is us. But I don't want to be a hypocrite in giving advice on a marriage. We're always, Kari and I have said several times, we're always working on our marriage. There's things we need to continue to work on. Me as a man, as a leader, as a husband, as a father, I'm always reading. I'm always wanting to grow. I find myself often at the altar as well, getting things right with God. But I do, from the bottom of my heart, believe that we have a good marriage. It's something we work on for sure. But 18 years now, Kara, we've never brought up divorce. We've never talked about calling it quits. We've definitely seen our fair share of arguments or things that we did not agree on. But there are some tips that I believe we have been given, but then also that we've grown in over the years. And these are those kind of helps that we want to be a blessing and a help to those that aren't necessarily younger than us, but we've had quite a few people that have commented that have been married 10 years longer than we have. And so I love when we're in a group or a circle of people that are wanting to grow in their marriage.
Yeah. And I love that someone asked you about that.
Yep.
Because I think especially, within Christian circles, a lot of times you see a home that looks normal, and you see a couple coming to church with their kids, and they might be, dressed nice, and they might even have a smile on their face, but you never know what is going on in someone's home, and you don't know what's going on in their marriage. So I think more transparency and more realness is a good thing, especially in Christian circles. We're trying to glorify God. We're trying to be, people that improve our culture and improve the world in which we live. And I think it's great that someone had the comfort level to come to you and say, you're talking about this. Is it real? Do
Right.
you have a good marriage? I
Right.
love that. Feel free to ask us anything. And I hope that, we can do that with older couples as well.
And again, we do have some notes that we write down, that some taglines that we prep to get ready. But a lot of this is just we're sitting here reading a script. So I'm going to ask you something, Kari, just off the cuff. Let me say this: when you say transparent, we definitely grew up in a circle where that was not always evident. I know all of our parents listen to this, so I'm not throwing our parents under a bus at all. But we definitely were brought up in some circles that it was kind of fake it till you make it. It was very religious. It was, you have a bad marriage, you don't tell anybody. We grew up in a kind of a culture where if you ever went to see a counselor, you were a very weak person, or you're a weak Christian. And we're going to have a counselor on here very soon talking about these issues. But let me ask you this. When people are not transparent, where does that hurt? In the family, in the marriage, when people are not transparent and just it's this perfect, happy Instagram life, where does that hurt?
I think the biggest damage that causes is to the children, if there's children in the home, because they know what goes on in the home.
Yeah,
they know. Even if you think you're fighting behind closed doors, they feel the vibes, they feel the cold shoulder, they feel the, lack of communication. And I mean, some people just will have it out right in front of their kids. So your kids know if you're not happy. They know if you're struggling. And then they see you come to church or have people over or whatever. And they see you put it on. And that's damaging.
Yeah.
That literally teaches a child not to heal your issues, but to just keep going like everything's fine. A second way, that it can really hurt is that for a woman, obviously I speak from that perspective, there's always rupture, and a woman can handle rupture as long as there's repair. There's got to be the cycle of rupture and repair. You can't have continual hurt, continual, pain or wounding, so to speak, emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever, and never have that repair. Because a woman will take it. She will take it and take it and take it and take it and take it. And one day she's going to say, I'm done. And she means it. And she is done because she was done 2 years ago. And that's how long a woman can hang on. We can power through. We are good at that. But I've seen so many marriages where you think I've seen people that teach marriage classes.
Yep.
And they have a terrible marriage at home, and she'll come after so many years and say, we haven't had a good marriage in 10 years. And I'm like, what? This is shocking. And it is shocking because they put this whole facade on publicly, and then privately she has been putting up with it. And she finally says, I'm done. And a lot of times the spouse that draws that line and says, I'm finished, everyone will blame it on them.
Right.
But,
right.
It's always two sides to a story. So I think that's where a lot of the damage comes in putting it on, is like, listen, you might think you're keeping your marriage together, but you're not. You're just slowing down the inevitable.
Right.
You're just slowing down the process of repair. And, you're going to be sitting in filing divorce papers, or you're going to be sitting in therapy instead of just hitting it head on when things start to go bad.
Right.
If you say something then, and you just be transparent, be real. Have we not, there have been times early in our marriage where we talked to people, we got advice, we got counsel.
We did.
And,
we did.
Boy, what a blessing that was.
It was. There's two things you said. Number one, definitely hurts the kids. We've seen it and now that we are in our 40s, we've seen a lot of friends that just went through, and their families really were this big. We get out at a friend's house, you smile, you say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, you're perfect. You get out of church, there is no running. It was just this perfect world. And yet when parents got in the car, they were yelling, fighting, complaining about church, complaining about the world. And then it's this big fake facade. And those kids hit 18 and they got a little freedom and they were gone. And I can name you, and you can, and I'm sure our listeners can, if they grew up in that kind of circle, whether you're a Christian or not. You get to this age where you just have to, it all comes out. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
the second thing, you spoke into the kids and then also the women and men. We are just as bad at this as well. Men can hide it in. It's masculine. We think it's masculine. It's this thing to do. We are warriors. We are fighters. It's why we fall down as a 4-year-old and, a 7-year-old, I guess I should say, and a girl gets up screaming and she's crying, but a kid, a boy, will hold it in and fight back the tears. And I got this. I'm going to be okay. And unfortunately, that carries through where we will take a lot of verbal abuse from a spouse and just hide it in. We're stronger. We don't want to hurt anybody, so we're just gonna keep piling it on. And guys, I'll tell you this: it is wrong. That should not be the case at all. There should be communication in the home. There should be communication with the spouse. We are not more manly by just hiding and burying these things in our heart, because even though it's buried, it's not gone. We have it in our mind. We're bringing it up often. We're rehearsing it in the car and at work and in the shower. And even though our spouse may never hear it, we're saying it and rehearsing it to ourselves until finally, a woman, I do believe you're right, Kara, gets to a point where she's done. We've seen it over and over. There is no going back. I feel like once a woman gets past a certain point, there's something psychological that takes place. She snaps. She's done. For a man, you can easily get to that place where, okay, you might not snap and be done, but you unload. And that's really poor communication, because at that time, it's not just let's talk about this one issue. It's a ton, just unloading.
Yeah.
And so, Kara, I hope this does record all the way through
technical
here.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, that just came up. I'm going to watch it for a little while, make sure. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop this and come right back in. So it truly is for the men. We have to be careful as well that we just don't all hide it in and then we're ready to unload. Transparency, or being transparent, is absolutely vital. And especially in relationships going forward, if we're not careful, we really can damage a generation behind us just trying to make it through. So what do you say we jump into some of these tonight, kind of looking at myths in our marriage?
Yeah.
And, so why don't you start us out, Kara? Go with the first one there.
Yeah. So one myth that pops up in marriage is that you should be able to read my mind. And I think this is especially fun for women. I believe women do genuinely think, and I'm speaking like from myself, but honestly from like tons of women too, I know. We think you guys should know more about the way we think than is realistic. I feel like it's unrealistic to expect someone to be able, not obviously we're not meaning actually reading your mind, but just
we know.
Expecting you to understand the way I'm thinking or what I need or what I want.
Right.
On any, particular day or given situation. And I think it is pretty unrealistic, but for some reason we do think that sometimes. I remember like even, in our marriage several times where I thought, why wouldn't he know that, And I think is that the same for men? You feel that we should be able to read your mind sometimes?
It is. And I tell you where it hurts in a marriage, why this is a myth. You should be able to read my mind is because it brings a lot of frustration. And it's actually very awkward if you're ever with someone and a woman just stares at a man like, you should know what I'm going to say, or the guy does the same. It's very awkward for everybody in the room. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah.
It's always this, okay, this is weird. But then also, Kara, honestly, it's just frustration, on both sides. You never know what a person's going through, what's going on in their mind. Have they had a bad day? They haven't been able to share. It might not be something they're even thinking about, and yet honestly, there is this myth out there. You should be able to read my mind. And when these husbands and wives fall into this trap of really assuming that a spouse can figure out what you need, before you even realize yourself, it really just brings a lot of tension and frustration in the relationship.
Yeah.
Instead of just communicating, a lot of this what we're talking about tonight is communicating. You know what? Here's what I'm thinking. Do you think I'm right on this? Give somebody the opportunity to speak back. Give somebody the opportunity to speak into your life. A lot of times, Kara, this is not easy for men to do, again, because we are men, we're leaders, and sometimes it's very hard to ask for advice. And especially when it's kind of unsolicited, just the advice comes, guys will just kind of, I don't know if I like that. And even, sometimes in my life when I ask you, hey, what do you think about this? And you give me an answer that's contrary to what I'm looking for. Guys can't always take that. But men, we should be able to relax and communicate. And I think every guy who's tuned in is really going to appreciate this, that it's a frustration to us when our wives are just staring at us like, you should know this. You got this, but you know me. Guys are just different. We are created with aren't we? With different brains. It's the way that God designed us.
And I think understanding that and accepting that.
Which is not easy.
Yeah. It's okay if your husband doesn't read your mind or can't anticipate what you might need. Now, Lord bless him if he can. Wonderful. That's great. But if it doesn't happen, don't let it frustrate you. I think communication is key here. And just a shout out to the men really quick. Honestly, one of the best things you can do in your marriage, if you feel like, I never know what she wants, I never know what she needs, I never know why she's mad, why is she always upset at me? Bud, ask. Just ask.
Right.
You don't have to say, like, why are you upset at me? But just ask and say, what do you need from me right now? How can I help you right now?
Do you think a woman will answer truthfully?
I think she will begin to once she starts getting used to the fact that you're saying it and you mean it. So if she's having a moment, and there's many reasons physically that a woman might not be in her best, but if there's frustration, with children, or, excuse me, scheduling or this or that, teach her. I think it's helpful for a man, and I know you've done this with me before, is, you'll say, what do you need from me right now? Sometimes I don't know the answer to that, because that's just how women are overwhelmed sometimes to that extent. We don't even know.
Right.
But sometimes he will say, can I go pick up pizza for dinner? Maybe that would take a load off. Or you'll give me a couple options. Do you want me to go get pizza, or do you want me to get the kids cleaning the house? And you'll kind of lay out a few options for me that you think would help. Now, sometimes it's not either one of those, but what that does is prompts my brain to start thinking in, more bullet points. Like, okay, we've got to start knocking something out.
Right.
Do you want me to get the kids in bed, or do you want me to go, pick up the groceries from Walmart pickup? Like, excuse me, I still have a cold. And those things kind of help.
Definitely. Let me interject. I think now everyone's following the thought process here of what we're going through. So a woman's having a bad day, just maybe hormones are a little bit off, and so it's this bad moment. So guys were like, oh, we're going to be the heroes. So can I go get the groceries? Can I do this? This is what we're talking about, where sometimes the spouse will be like, no, that's not what I need. You should know what I need right now. I've told you a million times. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. That's you got to be careful. It's a problem. And gentlemen, let me just put it this way. That's not a great time to rebuttal either. Like, well, I didn't know what you need. And then it's this huge argument that nobody wants to be in, and the kids are crying, and it hasn't solved the problem. And so guys, when they come back and it's not what they need, don't get frustrated. Just take a deep breath. Remember, we talked about this several episodes ago. When somebody's up, when one spouse is down, the other one needs to be up, and vice versa. And so, for sure, I think, Kara, so I asked you the question, do you think they'll tell the truth? And for guys, we need to continue to do this, and that is communicating. How can I help? How can I help? What can I do right now to ease this. And
And
here,
for
I think,
a woman, tell the truth.
right. And I think
Tell
we've
the
gotten
truth.
to a place where a lot of times it shocks me at how small it is. It's
Yeah.
usually not,
That's so
you
true.
know, I need a new house or just go give me a new car. It's not. I mean, how many times have you said, I just need a Diet Coke? And
Right
let me tell
on.
you, I am rolling down to
Yeah.
old Zaxby's down here to grab you a Diet Coke. And sometimes it's literally that easy of just a reset in the emotions that are taking place.
Babe, I'm so low maintenance.
Okay. I
You're
said,
so lucky.
sometimes
You're
it's easy.
so, what a blessed man. I do think ladies too, do tell the truth.
You got me on that one.
Do tell the truth. And
Right.
I think I got used to it, understanding that sometimes what this taught me when he said, what can I do? Was it forced me to put into perspective my needs. What do I need right now?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what came out, which has been a lot lately, because there were things that mentally I needed help with, but it was like for my job or for my specific ministry in the church or for something within my extended family. And I realized when he said that, there is nothing he can do. And so number one, that pushed me closer to God. Like, and I know I've said to you before, just pray for me. There's nothing physically you can do for me. Or then number two, it forced me to accept emotional comfort from you. And I would say, there's nothing but I would love to just sit on the couch and I just want you to hold me. And I never had expressed that before, even though I felt that. Like, I wish he would just hold me. I wish he would just hug me and let me just cry this out. But I'd never expressed that before because it's kind of embarrassing and against your pride. But once we started like using this practice in our marriage, what do you need from me right now? How can I support you? I stopped saying the things like, oh, take the kids to bed or help me clean up the kitchen. And I realized like what I really needed from you was I needed just your emotional support. I needed to know that you're just here. You're just here for it. And it's messy and it's dirty. And sometimes I'm frustrated, but you are here for me.
Right.
And so more often than not, I find myself so often that's what I'll answer with.
Yeah.
Like, I can do all the things. I just need you. And that's been such an awesome development in our marriage. Because at first it was, you know, when the kids are little, like
Not joking.
get them to bed or help me clean or laundry or this or that. And now I'm like, oh, I got all that. I just want the hug. I just want the Diet Coke. My emotional support drink.
I'd rather give you a hug than a Diet Coke, too.
Really?
Just being honest. Yeah, we guys love to hug their wives.
Oh, well.
Okay. Do you need a hug?
I need a hug after the embarrassing beginning of this podcast.
Anyways.
Okay, so that's You Should Read My Mind. Next
Yes.
up, I can treat you any way I want. This is a big one.
It is.
This is a big one.
This is where let's go into two sections of this one. This might take a little bit longer, Kara, but we can skip some of these other ones, which is fine.
Okay.
Like this one right here, we're gonna just go ahead and take out because I'm not huge on that anyway. So,
Okay.
let's take. There's two things that I can treat you any way I want. There is a problem in marriages. We've seen it over and over again, and I'm telling you right now, you need to tune into this because if you're sitting here saying, "Oh, we'll never break up, we'll never get a divorce," you may not. But there are a lot of marriages that you may live together, but you are total strangers in the house. And it's because of this one thing. I got married so I could treat you any way I want, or we got married and I can look any way that I want. Both of them are absolutely wrong. We've gotten to this place. How many times have we've logged thousands of hours of counseling, and we get to this place, Kara, where it's like we're talking amongst ourselves like, you know what? He gave up. He gave up on himself. They got married, and, you know, he was this kind, compassionate, brought home flowers, looked good. They got married. They're 4 years into their marriage. He's gained 75 pounds. He doesn't take care of himself. You know, he stinks. It's no compassion, no love, and just like, well, bless God, we're not getting divorced. And I'm just telling you guys, I'm speaking to the guys, that is wrong. Like, it's wrong. You married, you're in this thing for life, and we did a whole episode on health, and I just want to kind of reiterate, we need to take care of ourselves. Like we as, let me speak to the Christian side once again, like we're Christians, and we at times have the worst testimony here. It's like, praise God, we can put on a suit and tie, or we can wear a jean skirt, but we are overweight and we're frumpy and we look bad. And yet we think we have a good testimony and we don't. And so many marriages struggle because out there is pornography, out there is an affair waiting to happen. And yet these couples get married and it's like, yeah, we can look and do whatever we want to. And
I see it now. So you're saying I can treat you any way I want, but then the second part is I can treat myself any way I want.
Ding,
wow.
ding, ding.
That's deep, babe.
Wow.
I like it. That's so true.
That's why I'm the coast number 2.
Coast 1 and coast 2. So you cannot treat your spouse with disrespect, or you should not. Just because you're married, you shouldn't bring home guilt and verbal abuse and all of your problems and trials and dump it on your spouse. At the same token, you shouldn't trash your own mind and body the same way.
That's right.
Right?
I think it's disrespectful to both people.
Right.
Right.
And
both parties.
We can discuss this because it is something we have walked through. Having 5 children, there are definitely things, I as a woman, and I know you can speak to your experience as well, but bodily changes, mental changes, confidence changes, that really affects you. And not just childbearing, a lot of different things do. But we've both walked through those times where we were at separate times within our marriage. I had a lack of respect for myself. I had a lack of confidence. I didn't think, I'm not doing, how many times have I said this? I can't do anything well. I can't do anything right, and you're like, I don't know, who is this person you're seeing? Right. You're like, I don't see that from you. Right. I just don't know who you're seeing in the mirror. And you've been through those times too. And I love that thought. Like, it's as badly as you treat a spouse, and you would go to therapy and therapy would say, you cannot disrespect your spouse. In the same manner, you shouldn't treat yourself that way either.
That's right. That's right.
Is that just as damaging in a marriage, do you think?
100%.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. I really do. I think it's there again is the aspect of, we got married. I'm speaking for all of our listeners that are Christians. We don't believe in divorce. We believe that you really ought to. I, biblically speaking, believe that there are areas where you can get divorced. The Bible's clear on that. But for the most part, it's not, oh, you had a bad hair day, I'm divorcing you, or I fell out of love. We just don't believe in that. And so, getting back to, okay, so you can't now just, we're married, so now I could treat you any way I want. And, we might not see a lot of physical abuse, but there is definitely a lot of verbal abuse that takes place in marriages. A running down of a spouse is so hurtful. And yet we see it in seasoned Christians, older couples that know better and are constantly negative. Well, I married him, and he knows me. We're good. We've been married for this long. And so it doesn't give you a right to run them down or to treat them the way that you are treating them. When we are treating people at church better than we are treating our spouse, we have got this really wrong. And gentlemen, we are commanded by God to love our wives as God loved the church and gave himself for it. That's a lot of love there. And this thing of my old woman and I can do what I want, and then just again, just be this total this person that, well, you married me, you're not going to divorce me, so I can basically come in, look how I want, treat you how I want. I'm telling you right now, it's wrong.
Yeah. I love that. And to use Christian principles, of saying a blanket statement, we don't believe in divorce. Obviously, there are exceptions, and there's, times when even biblically it's acceptable. However, to hide behind the Christian principle of, well, we will never get divorced, and then to let yourself go and to criticize and self-doubt and treat your own body and your own mind badly, or that of your spouse, and then say, well, they just have to go through it with me because we can't divorce. That is wildly unspiritual.
Right. Right.
Christ does not desire for any of us to trash our physical bodies or minds with abuse, and
Right.
especially not that of our spouse. So having that balance and understanding that just because you're married, yes, of course there's times where your family sees the worst in you because you live together.
Absolutely.
And they will, and that's fine. But to have the attitude of purpose,
Yeah.
of, well, too bad, they're my family, they have to put up with this.
Right.
That's very, very damaging.
It absolutely is. So before we go on, maybe we might have to just stop on this point because I want to say this. Let's help our listeners.
Yes, let's do.
If you're listening to this, is like super dark and like, oh my word. So let me say this. If you're wanting to date your spouse, as we talked about in the first episode, you're going to have a good time. It doesn't matter if you're married for a year or 30 years. You want to, let me use this word here. I know we have young listeners, so obviously I'm being very careful. But if you're an adult in the room, you know what I'm talking about. If you want to spice it up, you want your relationship to be fun, energetic. Remember when we were married 20 years ago? We was just, okay, got it, good. Not all those things work exactly the same as they did when you were young. But
What
I will
are
tell
you
this.
saying?
Shh, let me follow my thought here. Take care of yourself. That's what I'm getting at. You want to spice it up? Start taking care of yourself. Like so many times we're speaking to people about marriages, and he doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't look at me like he used to. Well, maybe we ought to start taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically, we already told the stories. Michael Dell didn't care. Remember, we got back from our cruise. And I'm like, I'm looking at pictures like, well, no wonder she doesn't think I'm the Thomas Shepard of yesterday. I wasn't. I was chubby. I was frumpy. My clothes weren't fitting right.
I wasn't. Upsy cruise. That's what it was for both of us. For both.
Okay, well, let's put both. I'm like, oh wow, that really hurts. The Chubsy Bubsy cruise. Mercy. The problem is you had 5 kids. I didn't have any kids, so there's no excuse for me. But
we've been over this.
We have.
I expected you to pick up the takeout. Of course, you're going to eat it with me.
So, for me though, I knew I have to change something. Like, number one, it's a bad testimony, but even more than that is, I wanted you to love me and be proud of me and the man that I am. And I just knew ever since then. I mean, that was 8, 9, 10 years ago now. And yet here we are, we still walk and we still work out. And we're both in our 40s and we feel good.
Yeah.
And I just said, nobody wants to hear this, but I think you are more beautiful now than when I married you 18 years ago. I think you are gorgeous, Care. But you take care of yourself and you look good and you're put together. And I know some people are like, I don't like makeup. I always tell you, I like makeup. I think you look great in makeup, but then not that you don't.
I feel like we're going to get comments on that.
Yeah,
but
we are.
Thank you.
I can already, one of your friends rhymes with Harissa is definitely going to texting you on that one.
He is all about the names tonight. I'm so scared.
Anyway.
Sorry about that cough.
I think it's taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. And I, that perspective, obviously we've sang that tune, time and again, but also mentally, you can be beautiful on the outside. You can do all the things. You can get the Botox, you can get all the fillers you want. Men, you can work out till you're ripped and, all the things. And that's wonderful. And we've seen the most beautiful couples with the most beautiful bodies and homes and families and still end up in divorce or in an affair because you can take care of the outside and completely neglect to take care of your mind.
Yeah.
And I can speak to the women on this. That is taking care of your intelligence and your spirituality.
Yes.
Crack a book open. Won't kill you. Honestly.
Right. That's right.
If your husband sees you trying, maybe it's, a book about the job in which you are and you're trying to improve yourself or, there's lots of things you can do. Take a class, or if you're not in that stage of your life, even if you have small children or you're newlyweds or whatever, but focusing on not just the outward, but also your mind and your heart and your standing spiritually with the Lord, all those things
that really shows not just your spouse, but anyone with whom we have dealings, that we have the Holy Spirit inside of us, and we have respect for not just our bodies, but who He's created us to be, and how we're managing our time and our love and our wealth, and anything that God's given us, how we manage that. It's important. It's important, and it's very good. I know we are the happiest. We always love each other, but we are the happiest when we're happiest with ourselves.
Yeah.
Like
Always.
when you're
Always.
feeling good, and when you're right with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and when I locked that back door.
Somebody knocking?
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
It's Tommy and Lois. Sorry to our viewers if you're watching this. My kids were at my sister's house and they're knocking on the back door, and I forgot I locked it. But when I'm happiest with myself, and that doesn't mean I'm in the best shape, that doesn't mean I'm the best I've ever been, but it means I'm putting in the effort to be a person that I respect. Because if I can respect myself, and if I can have those feelings of, self-respect and humility before the Lord, then I think it really impacts our marriage for the better.
It does. It does. Again, kind of going back to you want your marriage to be alive. You want it to be healthy. You want to spice things up. Start taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And Kara, I love how you said it. It's not just outwardly, it's on the inside as well.
Yeah.
Show each other that you care.
Yes.
You care for yourself. This is not, hey, we got married, so now I could treat you any way that I want to.
Yeah.
That's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And so
good.
hopefully tonight we've given you some good tips on keeping your marriage alive, and some myths that do sneak in. We were not planning on going to a fourth episode of this, but we may have to. There's a couple other things that really like to address. I think they'd be really good, but I think this is good enough for this week for sure. So
absolutely,
continue to tune in, continue to share, and we sure do appreciate all the feedback that we've been getting, and then the compliments that have come in. We're glad that we can be just a small part of your life.